Chrome King Gallywix is the final boss of the Liberation of Undermined raid in World of Warcraft, the War Within. This is a 3-stage boss fight with a brief intermission between the second and third stages. The fight basically revolves around dealing with a lot of different explosives, and dealing with general goblin-y mischief. Gallywix is going to be piloting a giant goblin mecha suit, and you're going to be having to take it down as he slowly upgrades it throughout the fight. This is big time a zone management fight and a lot of healing as well as a lot of mobility required. To start it all off, split your raid into 2 separate groups, and split the groups up onto either side of the boss. There is a large cone effect that's going to happen immediately after pull and periodically throughout the fight that'll blast all targets in an area, splitting damage from everybody that gets hit. This will put a debuff onto all of those targets that needs to be healed off, and when it gets fully healed off, it's going to do a pulse of damage. On heroic difficulty, this pulse hits the entire group, and on normal, it just hits the player that gets fully healed. Every time this effect goes off, do the tank swap, and make sure the teams are staying close to their active tank. After the first wave, he's going to create 2 large circled areas. All players need to rotate out of these, preferably both groups rotating clockwise if possible, but depending on the placement, that might not always be ideal. These large circles will explode after delay, dealing massive damage to anybody inside it. After that explosion, it's going to send out a bunch of small bombs that will scatter across the arena, and then again after delay, those bombs will explode. At the same time is the second of the major cone effect onto the second group, so that group needs to be ready and on their tank. On heroic difficulty, a new bomb is going to slam down on the arena, 150-pound dud. The tank that is not currently actively tanking needs to run over to this bomb, pop a defensive cooldown, and interact with it, taking a big debuff and requiring quite a bit of healing. Several players are going to be marked with yellow arrows and get a circle around them that they need to move out of the group before they detonate. And on heroic difficulty, they'll then drop a bomb where they detonate that they then have to get out of. Finally, small red circles are going to appear under several players' feet and continuously spawn for a short duration. Players need to just quickly rotate out of these, avoiding them as much as possible. This phase is just a rinse and repeat of those different effects until the boss reaches 100 energy. You want to do as much damage as you can in this phase, so that phase 2 is a lot shorter. Gallywix's attacks on the tank deal increased damage the further the tank is away, so you only want to tongue swap when the tank that is taking threat is close to the boss. He's also going to be stacking a trick shots buff. If this buff stacks up to 10 times, or if his threat target changes, he'll detonate out damage based off how many stacks he currently has. If your team is not able to deal with the full damage of the 10 stack detonation, you're going to need your tanks to be taunt swapping a little bit more frequently. Try and get him as close to 50% HP as you possibly can while you're dealing with these basic mechanics. But don't use Lust in phase 1. You're going to want to be saving that for phase 3. At 100 energy, phase 2 begins, and will last until he reaches 50% HP. This phase starts by a bunch of yellow circles appearing around the boss. Players need to get out of these locations, and a bunch of mobs are going to spawn that the tanks need to pick up, and players need to burn down. Upon killing these mobs, they drop a small bomb object on the ground. Players need to go over to this bomb and click their extra action button to pick it up. This will give them another extra action button that allows them to toss the bomb off the side of the arena. But these graded objects around the outside of the room are all going to lower down, and some Giga controls are going to appear. If you bring a bomb to an active Giga control, the bomb will explode on that control and destroy it. Periodically throughout this phase, the boss is going to turn to these different areas that have the Giga controls and begin channeling into one of them. If the control that he's channeling into gets destroyed, it's going to send feedback back at him and stop his next attack. If not, then he's going to do a Giga charge. He'll pulse for raid-wide damage and then create a large blue beam that players need to dodge out of. There will be some hobgoblin wrenchmen that the tanks need to pick up, and these mobs need to be burnt down rather quickly because they stack a debuff on the tanks every time they attack. On heroic, they're also going to gain an enrage effect that needs to be dispelled off of them, which will reduce their movement speed and greatly increase their damage dealt. If these cannot be removed, the tank that has threat needs to kite them around, avoiding the attacks because they're going to be devastating. He'll regularly move towards the center of the arena and begin channeling into another one of the controls. He'll also regularly cut off large sections of the arena, 1/4 at a time, which is a slow enrage mechanic that will get you to wipe if you aren't able to get into 50% HP before he removes the entire field. At 50%, these zones should disappear, and a big mechanized suit is going to slam down at a large area in the arena. Players need to get out of this or be crushed. The head chamber will then go and connect to it, and he'll begin casting Total Destruction, which needs to be interrupted. But first, you're going to have to break through the massive shield that he gains. All players need to focus in and burn him down until the shield's gone, and then interrupt Total Destruction. On heroic, you're going to be dodging lightning beams throughout this phase that will stun you if you take any damage from them. Upon interrupting Total Destruction, phase 3 begins, and he's going to start moving around in this mechanized suit. There will be a new tank debuff in this effect. He'll slam a bomb into the active tank, which will put a big orange circle around them. that player needs to get out of the group and detonate as far away from them as possible. After the detonation, several bombs are going to fly throughout the arena. On Heroic, one of those 1,500-pound duds is going to appear, and the tank that just exploded needs to rush over to that, use a defensive, and interact with the dud. While other players are going to be marked with yellow arrows, and they'll have 3 beams coming out of them in a triangular pattern. These players need to slightly move out of the group until they're safe, and then stay still and allow players to react to their beam placements. After a delay, each of these is going to explode, and if you get hit by this effect, you get knocked backwards, which can knock you off of the arena. All the while, you'll be dodging orange circles. In this phase, he'll also start putting down 3 canisters around the room. Players need to stand in these canisters before they explode, and split the damage that they deal. If no players are within the canisters, it's going to do raid-wide damage, so you need to make sure to stack into these. Sometimes these can spawn when he's cutting off a portion of the room, and you're going to have to pop a major defensive cooldown to be able to survive both the damage from the field as well as the damage from the canister. This phase acts very similarly to phase 2. He's going to begin summoning all of the different adds from that phase. You're going to have to kill the technicians, pick up the bombs, and go and destroy the Giga controls around the arena. You're going to be burning down all the different mobs and interrupting their spell casts while dodging all of the different bombs. On Heroic difficulty, he gains a new tank buster in this phase called Ego Check. This will do some massive damage to the current tank and stack a big debuff on them. You're going to want to use external defensives to help the tank survive this effect. Similar to phase 2, he's going to be cutting off portions of the arena with the electrical effect, and you're going to need to burn this boss down before you run out of space. This phase is where you're going to be using Lust and burning this boss down. Just keep repeating through the effects and you should be able to take down Chrome King Gallywix. I hope all my guides helped you figure out how to clear through the Liberation of Undermined raid. I'm Zesty Fresh with Saza Games, and we'll catch you guys next time. Sazaze.